popcorn ready? It's game time, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome
a team that is known as the Bears. The Bears.
The Athletic presents Hoge and Jahns.
Every single play, go take it. Bring that juice. Let's go get it. Come on.
Chicago's best Bears coverage.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
From NBC Sports Chicago, it's Adam Hoge.
I do think he has the support of his teammates. Why would you not be rooting for him to succeed?
And from The Athletic, it's Adam Jahns.
I don't mean to psychoanalyze this stuff, but this is what we do in Chicago. This is what we do with our quarterbacks, and this is the biggest story in town.
Here they are, the Adams, Hoge and Jahns.
What's up? Welcome in. It is officially NFL Draft Week. We are just a couple days away, boys, and finally we can stop the speculation. Well, not quite. We still got one more episode of that, but this will be our last speculation episode, and we got plenty of it as we dive into a day of press conferences with a couple players and Ryan Pace. What's up, Johnsy?
A little bit different than Kyle Shanahan's press conference where he said people were going to die or could not. Did you guys see that one? Like, in terms
I was
of
trying to follow that presser on Twitter, and it seemed like things were getting weird.
Yeah. You know, he's trying to be discreet. It sounds like there's a debate over that number 3 pick going on inside the 49ers front offices. But yeah, Ryan Pace didn't promise that people would die today, so that's a good step in the right direction for the Bears GM.
No, instead people died reading my Bears mock draft apparently this morning, which we will get into as well. My last mock draft, I did something I've never done before in 11 years of doing these mock drafts, but it was quite fun. So we'll get into that a little bit as well. Hoge and Jahns here with you, and Kevin Fishbain is in the house. What's up, Fishman?
What's up, guys? I love NFL Draft Week.
Week or the weeks leading up to it?
All of it. I love the NFL Draft. I'm trying to decide if I want to do my annual tweet thread about how drafts are stupid. And it's
well, you
like
can't
really,
say you love it and then say it's stupid.
Let me tell you
Drafts are
something, my
stupid.
friend. It's called cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Okay? I love the NFL Draft. It is so silly. Why can't Trevor Lawrence pick where he wants to go and negotiate his own salary? Why does he get stuck in Jacksonville for 5 years?
Yeah.
We could save that for another podcast.
I mean, yeah, you just open up a big can there. I guess some of it's fair. Because then, you know what? We would not have amazing things happen like Bill Belichick's dog making a pick or
The Rams renting a beach house or whatever they're in,
Yeah.
and having their own reality television
I
show.
love that because like that they don't even need to do that. Like the Bears are back in their draft room and the Rams are they're like, let's just rent a house in Malibu and have our draft room there because we can.
We're the Rams.
Good for them.
What are the odds Sean McVay just takes off his shirt and does it from the pool?
I mean, they basically already have based on some of those videos they put out. I would love that. I'm going to miss all the fun we had last year with the virtual draft. I forget where I saw it on Twitter yesterday. There was a really good thread of some of the best moments of last year. And I forgot how funny some of it was. Like Roger Goodell was fully suited up on Thursday. Then he went to a sweater by Friday. And then he was basically just in a t-shirt on Saturday.
Yeah, just giving up.
He was just like in his lazy boy chair, just reclined and kind of tired as it went along.
Yeah.
Wasn't that his basement too? Like I expected a nicer basement for the commissioner of the NFL. Right? Like, come on. We know your salary.
It was pretty nice. It just wasn't very big, it seemed like.
Yeah. Like maybe
But you
it's
never
basement
know.
office.
Right,
We
that may have
did get Matt Nagy's basement office or poker room full of call sheets.
Yep.
Hey, we saw what the offense looked like last year.
Man, he's just full of
Wow.
podcast over, guys. This is
I mean, my God,
It's
I'm
just-
getting enough of this on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't need it from Kevin on the podcast. Jeez,
And I'm in a great
shots left
mood.
and right.
Northwestern's going to have 2 first-round picks on Thursday night. Just
Yeah. And according to your mock, one of them going to the Bears.
and I'm taking after one of your mocks as well.
Hey, and your guy, Chris Sims, the NFL draft gospel, according to Chris Sims, according to Adam Jahns, if that made sense, he's got Rashawn Slater going to the Bears.
at 20.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's with Justin Fields still on the board.
Oh, not going to happen.
Fields going 32nd to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
No, he needs to fix that. He needs to rewrite his gospel.
John just gave up on Chris Sims.
Yeah,
He's
done
throwing
with
it
his
all out the
rankings.
window.
No, I still like his QB rankings, but yeah, you got to fix that. The
all
Bears would
right.
be thrilled if both those players are there, right? They'll be doing cartwheels up at Hallis Hall.
That would be crazy. Cartwheels. The fans would not be doing cartwheels if the Bears pass on Justin Fields. If Justin Fields is on the board and they don't take him, this Thursday's podcast I don't even know what you call it. It'll just be a meltdown of epic proportions. We might have to set up multiple voicemail lines. It'll just be crazy. But welcome in. We got one more episode before the draft, and Ryan Pace did speak to the media today. The three of us were on the call. And then they gave out the Brian Piccolo Award winners to Allen Robinson, veteran, which meant we got to talk to Allen Robinson for the first time since he was tagged and all that going down. So some things on Allen Robinson in this podcast, and Darnell Mooney was the rookie winner. And there's some things to get into, too, about the offseason program. So it's not all draft talk here. There is some news, and we will discuss it all. Adam Hoge and Adam Jahns and Kevin Fishbain. You can follow us on Twitter, at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns, and at K Fishbain on Twitter. You can read those guys on The Athletic, theathletic.com/Hoge and Jahns, where you go to subscribe. They have their dual mock draft, their dual Bears mock draft up, where they both made picks, all picks for the Bears. And then I have one up on NBCSportsChicago.com, my fourth and final mock draft, which we'll discuss all those picks as well as we get into this. But let's start with Ryan Pace. We're going to play some of this for you. It's always an interesting press conference because, the GM always talks right before the draft, like days before the draft, setting up the draft, but really can't say anything about the draft because you don't want to give away any secrets. I still kind of find it valuable, though. I know he's not giving away anything huge, but it's still interesting to hear things like the Bears draft setup. That was one thing I thought was interesting today. They're going to have 10 people in the draft room. Remember, the Bears built this great new draft room a couple years ago. They used it once, and then they weren't able to use it last year. So they are going to be using it this year at Hallis Hall. There's going to be 10 people in there, masked up, socially distanced, and then all the other scouts and coaches that would normally be around the room will still be around Hallis Hall, and they could call them in if they need to consult somebody, or everybody's still going to have a say, and it'll be a lot different from how it was last year.
Beach house would have been better, like a trip up to Lake Geneva. Maybe
Go to Lake Geneva. So you want to go into you want to invade Packer territory?
Oh, come on, that's vacation country for Chicagoans. Sorry.
I bet they could find a nice Airbnb out in Lake Forest or Lake Bluff.
I know of one. Shout out to Cypress Resort on Petite Lake, and the Channel Lake's still in Illinois.
There you go. If you want to stay in Illinois, but
that's 30 minutes. That's 30 minutes away from Hallis Hall. Boom, done. It's not Malibu. I'm not gonna lie, it's not Malibu, but so you still get a nice view of the lake and can walk on the beach a little bit when you get stressed out because you drafted Kellen Mond in the first round.
Ooh, let's get to that. I mean, on a more serious
note,
note,
foreshadowing, my friends.
Yes, yes. On a more serious note, Lake Geneva vacations aside, it is still good to hear from the GM about various matters, whether he's calling a certain position deep or whatnot, and you try to glean whatever information you can from these news conferences, Zoom conference calls, whatever you want to look at them as these days. But yeah, you want to play Pace right now?
Yes, let's do it. We basically pulled out all the quarterback stuff for you and some of the interesting things. It was a decently long press conference. We pulled it all together in one big chunk for you, and I think our friend Hub Arkish has the first question.
I'm curious with this group. I'm not asking if you're going to take a quarterback, but as you look at the 5 quarterbacks everybody's talking to, how do they compare just rating wise or grade wise to the other the first round top 10, top 15 quarterbacks you've seen in the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I would say to be honest, just the depth, the totality of that group. To be honest with you, it is deep this year, and they're all different and every team's going to evaluate each one of these players different, no different than any position. And I think I think, not going through every position, but every year, of course, you feel different areas of the draft where there's depth, and sometimes, we've been able to take advantage of that. I think, day 3 picks for us where there's been depths in that area of the draft, like when we took Tariq or Eddie Jackson or Mooney last year. Those were areas where I thought there was a lot of depth, and it trickled into even day 3 because of that.
Adam Jahns.
Hey, Ryan, I guess with those quarterbacks and working closely hand in hand with Matt, how adamant has he been in those conversations about those quarterbacks? How much banging on the table has he done when talking about those quarterbacks? And then the second part of that is Flip's part in this, Laser's part in this. How valuable has that been in those evaluations?
It's been really valuable, Adam. But really for Matt, what's been cool about it is he loves the scouting process so much. Some coaches are more into it than others. And so it's offense, it's defense. Matt's involved in every single position we're talking about. I remember last year, Adam, as we went through the corners and just his passion as we went through that evaluation process and Jalen Johnson and what it led us to. But yeah, I think, what's cool about with Matt and with Laser and with Flip, I think there's certain positions I think it is valuable if you've played that position, and I think quarterback is one of those. And all 3 of those guys have played the position at different levels. And I think it comes into play as we're talking about that position and just the different perspective they have on it and the different angle they have on it as we have our draft meetings.
Dan Wiederer.
Hey, Ryan, obviously you've never picked outside the top 10 in the first round since you got here. Knowing where you guys are at number 20, how do you describe the number of different contingency plans you guys have to be both accepting of and excited for, knowing the number of different ways that this whole thing could break on Thursday night?
Yeah, it is unique, Dan. I was just, looking over the last 10 years and the players that have gone in this range of the draft. And as you look back on the hit rates of those players, was there common denominators as you look in this range of the draft and those players? It's interesting. And it is harder. Like when you're picking in the top 10, it's very easy to have 100% consensus throughout your building. I mean, we could have 15 reports on a player, and in the top 10, everybody's got this guy paid. But when you go further back, it gets different, I like to take everyone's opinions in, and you're kind of weighing all that. And then I just think as an organization, we got to be ready for every single scenario. However this thing plays out, however this board falls, that's where all the preparation comes into play. And I feel like we're in that spot, whether it's trading up, staying put, trading back. All those things are in play for us, and it just comes with the preparation.
As a follow-up to Hub's question, how do you feel about the draft beyond the top 5 quarterbacks at that position?
That's where us as scouts and as evaluators, that's the exciting part, is challenging ourselves to identify those guys. And I feel like we have, and not just quarterback in a lot of ways. And, I can go up there right now and talk to our coaches and scouts, and everybody's, hey, I love this player in the 5th round. I love this player with one of our 4 6th round picks. Hey, if we can figure out a way to get a 4th round pick, I love this guy here. And we've done that with that position and a lot of other positions. And it's just board's got to fall a certain way, and you got to stick to taking the best player available.
Jeff Dickerson.
Hey, Ryan, getting back a little bit to the challenges you spoke of early on, not having the combine, not having the, the visits and everything. Does that make it harder when you put together your draft board at the top of the draft? Or is that more challenging not having those interactions when it comes to maybe guys later day 2, later day 3? Which one's more challenging?
I think it all is, Jeff. And I think, you look at it as a challenge and we've taken it on like that. But yeah, you're right. Like access during the season was different. Players opting out, that was different. We're watching tape on guys sometimes a year old, and you're looking at that and you're watching them a year removed. And now you're putting weight on the pro days, and how do they look at the pro day? Has their body changed? Have they maintained? Have they improved? All the different fluctuations that can take place. Like you said, no combine, only 3 people allowed per pro day. Not able to take those players out to dinner before or after the pro day. Those things weighed. So it's challenges throughout. I mean, we had our medical meetings last week, and some of that's been a challenge, to be honest with you. So I just think that's where we lean on the continuity of our staff and the experience and get creative on how we access some of that data and obtain some of that data. We lean on a lot of our resources. But I'm not going to lie, Jeff, it has been challenging. But that's part of that's, the excitement of the job. And we've taken that on. And I feel like we're in a really good spot.
With George right after the season ended, what percentage of those meetings was talk about your quarterback plan? And did that evolve in the last couple of months? And does that plan look different now than it did then?
Yeah, what's cool about it, Pat, is those. It's not like we had this one meeting. That's all. We talk every single day about everything and about the quarterbacks and about our roster and about our staff. And so those conversations are always ongoing and they're ever shifting and adjusting to the landscape that's in front of us. Some of it's in our control, some of it's not in our control, and just exploring all the different options at the quarterback position and at positions throughout our team. But I think what's been really good is having them involved in those discussions. It's been very collaborative. So everybody knows what's going on with every move we make and every turn we make.
Last one, Mark Grody.
Hey, Ryan, with having 2 veteran quarterbacks on your roster, do you look at this as an ideal, scenario in which to draft a quarterback? Does that enter your mind in the thinking here?
I do. I think if we did draft a quarterback, I do think it's a good room for sure. I mean, those guys both have a lot of experience, at a lot of different experiences too, which I think is good. And I think the coaching staff that we have there at that position is strong as well. We talked about it earlier with Matt and with Laser and with Flip. It's a strong coaching staff around that position, and we have a lot of veteran leadership in that room too. So yeah, to answer your question, I do think it'd be a good room for a young player to enter. But again, we're just going to take the best players throughout this draft.
Through all of this, especially in the early going, when he's talking about the deep class and like really enjoying the process of trying to get the second-tier prospects right. I know that applies to all positions, but the question was about quarterback. I texted my man Fishbain up there. Mond hint, exclamation point. Deep class. I think when you hear deep class, I know quarterbacks, it's usually thinner because it's just, there's only 32 starters and whatnot. But I think this year does apply to the second round a bit. I think the evaluations for these teams, like almost starting at 19 with Washington, will be different because they're going to be looking at these second tier guys. And they're going to value them a bit differently. So for you, Hoge, let me pose this question. Trading up for Kellen Mond in your mock draft. Like how did you come to that decision? How did you come to like Kellen Mond? And why do you think he fits for the Bears?
Well, technically I traded down.
That's what I mean, yes. But
not up, but I took him higher.
I think he's higher than most people would project. So, that's what I'm getting at.
So in your mock, you had the Bears taking him at 52,
right,
which is their normal second pick. So first of all, for the first time ever, I did trades in my mock draft, which I've never done before, but it was kind of fun to do.
So let's call it like a trade down for a trade up. Trading down the trade up for Kellen Mond.
Right. Or as you and some other people who were arguing last week with me, trading down to reach. Right. Fine. Here's the thing. This is based on more of the fact that Kellen Mond in the second round, that'd be great. That'd be ideal. I think everybody could live with that. I don't think he's going to be there. That's what that was based on mostly. I think first of all, it's based on a couple things I've heard. There's a lot. I think the leagues, and this doesn't go for the whole league. This goes for, again, all it takes is one team. But I think there are multiple teams. And I think there are, people like Chris Sims. Chris Sims is important enough and reliable enough. His opinion matters enough that if he's that high on Kellen Mond, there's probably at least one team that is too, right? He's not just coming out of nowhere with this. I know Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl, is very high on Kellen Mond, who was at the Senior Bowl. There's enough people in the scouting community that really like him that when you add that with what we always see with quarterbacks, and this idea that probably 5 guys are off the board earlier in the first round, there's, in my opinion, a pretty significant gap between Mond and Mills, and then beyond Mills, a really big gap. So you're running out of guys. You're running out of quarterbacks that you could potentially get. And I'm not just talking about the Bears. I'm talking about a lot of different teams. Okay. Then you throw in what we already know historically with the draft and the 5th-year option. Teams that jump into the back end of the first round to get one of those quarterbacks to secure that 5th-year option. Doesn't always happen, but it does happen. And you consider that next year's quarterback class, at this point at least, there's always guys that come out of nowhere, but right now it does not look that strong, certainly as strong as this year's class. I just add that all up, and it tells me there's a decent chance that Kellen Mond is going to go in the back half of the first round, if not early second. And I just don't think he's going to be there at 52. So what I did was I moved back from 20 to 25 with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are probably looking for an offensive tackle to go with Trevor Lawrence. They move up to 20. They get their guy. The Bears end up getting the 25th pick and the 33rd, which is the first pick in the second round. Very valuable pick. You get to sit there for 24 hours, take some trade offers, things like that. And I ended up taking Elijah Moore, the wide receiver from Ole Miss there. Now, I got a very fair question on Twitter today, which was, don't you think you could have reversed those 2 picks? Waited to take Mon on day 2. And my response was essentially what I just said. I think that's risky. I think that's a big risk. I think the chance that a team could always trade up there at the end of Thursday night and take him is too big that you secure the quarterback. And you probably have a cluster of wide receivers that you like, and you take the one that you want there at 33. And in the draft process I did, that was Elijah Moore.
With Pace calling this class deep, like, you just know he wants to be part of it, right? Like, the Bears want to be a part of it. So if it really is that deep, they got to get a guy. And I know there is the counter argument. You can't waste picks and whatnot, but look, they just have to, right? Like, I don't think they're going to view it as wasting a pick. It's a swing at the most important position in sports. And if they like their evaluation that much about a Kellen Mond, right, then take the swing. You know what? Because all these guys you just don't know if you're going to any position you could get wrong. There needs to be a swing with Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy at his side on this position. Like, I don't think you can wait. I think they know they can't wait. So that's why you hear him mention this being a deep class. That's why you hear him already starting to lay the groundwork for selling this as a deep class and wanting to be a part of it. That's just my take, but I could hear it. We've been around Ryan Pace enough to know what his hints are in terms of reading the tea leaves and whatnot. So they want to be a part of this. Matt Nagy wants a quarterback, and Kellen Mond just makes a lot of sense to me. At some point, whether that's post 20 or in the second round, it just makes a lot of sense for me.
You know what amuses me about the way Ryan Pace is viewed is the same people that don't trust him to use a first round pick on anybody are like, whoa, don't use it on a quarterback. Well, what gives you the confidence that if you use it on an offensive tackle or a wide receiver, that guy's going to pan out based on what we've seen? Let me remind you of Ryan Pace's first round picks: Kevin White, Leonard Floyd, Mitch Trubisky. None of them are on the team right now. So, like, I get the, wanting, the fear of using an early pick on a quarterback who doesn't pan out as opposed to getting a guy who could start right away. But why does anybody feel confidence that they're going to pick the right guy? It's not like the 20th pick is no guarantee. Johnsy went through some of the guys in that range over the years, and interestingly enough, the offensive linemen are the most reliable in that spot, but there are tons of busts in there. So yeah, I mean, if you find the look, the quarterback is different. Hoge, going back to the person who asked you if you could switch that, we all know that you kind of toss out the whole best player available thing when it comes to quarterback. I know Ryan Pace would say that Mitch Trubisky was the second best player on their board or the best player on their board after Myles Garrett, that he would say that, but we all know it's different with quarterback. So I'm okay with that Mond choice where that is, because they have to identify somebody they believe is a franchise quarterback, or I should say, if they identify that guy, you do whatever you can to get him where you can get him.
And look, I'm not surprised of the backlash I'm getting. I expected it. I think part of the problem is, I talk about this a lot, like, there ends up being sort of a public media consensus, media fans, whatever, public, on like where guys should go. But in reality, all 32 boards that matter, the teams that are picking these guys, they all look pretty different. I mean,
especially
there are guys
like as soon as you get out of the top 10, almost extremely different.
Yeah.
Look at Mac Jones. I mean, Mac Jones is a perfect example of this. The fact that there's a distinct possibility he's going to go number 3 to the San
and if he
Francisco
doesn't,
49ers.
he could fall really far.
Exactly.
So it's to your point, John's like guys that are out of the top 10. I mean, we see this every year with a player who this public consensus says is a second round pick doesn't go draft, like goes undrafted, or somebody who we think is like maybe a 6th or 7th rounder ends up going in the 3rd round. Now you could debate how often those picks work out or whatever, but the point is like no one really knows. And for all the reasons I just laid out with the quarterbacks, if Kellen Mond is on your list of guys you like, and maybe you want to get him in there at 52, can you risk not?
Yeah.
Can you risk not getting him if you wait? And Kevin, you said something before we started here on the podcast, like, and I followed up, like, what if Washington takes him at 19, right before the Bears pick? Like, what would the outrage be then? So, like, probably the same people who hate my mock draft today, if Mond's if they see Mond go ahead of the Bears, they're going to be really upset that like the Bears didn't trade up. Or if Mond goes on to be like a all-pro quarterback and the Bears didn't make that move to get him, like that's going to be on Ryan Pace's, on the list of things everyone hates about Ryan Pace, right? So it just, no one really knows how this is going to shake out. I try to use logic with this stuff. And by the way, he's still my number 6 quarterback. It's not like but I do have a late 1st round, early 2nd round grade on him. That's how deep. I really do think this quarterback class is loaded. I like it a lot.
Now history tells you that, well, first of all, all these quarterbacks aren't going to make it. Like someone's going to fail. Someone may flame out like miserably too. You just know the hit rate isn't 100% for quarterbacks. So as deep as it is, there's a lot of things to take into account. It's the situation, it's the coaches, it's injuries. There's a lot of things that have to play out in favor for the quarterback to really work. And if you look at the history too, like in the 20 range, those quarterbacks usually don't pan out either. And again, there's a variety of reasons for that. They're not, when they're drafted, it's like a Tim Tebow, Johnny Manziel. This is the area of the draft we're talking. Now, again, a lot of things. Sometimes that's the player, sometimes that's the team. From Johnny Football, I think that's both. But I think that type of risk, some Bears fans, maybe some media members, whatever, some analysts, aren't comfortable with it. But if we know anything about Ryan Pace, that certain risks are worth it if the potential for great reward are there. Only quarterback brings that out. Yes, I think the Bears need an offensive tackle. Yes, I think they need a cornerback. And those, according to recent draft history, are safe picks in the 20 range. Extremely safe picks. More often than not, you're going to get a starter. But the reward for finding that quarterback is so significant that the Bears just have to try again. And they have to, and Matt Nagy wants to try it again. Has to try it again.
I think, too, you look at, let's take offensive tackle, for example, right? They have their starters back from last year. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't try to upgrade there. Like I've said for years, they should draft an offensive tackle early. Let somebody compete with Charles Leno. Make him win his job at left tackle. I still stand by that. But you have your top 2 guys. You have a veteran backup. You look at wide receiver. You have your top 2 guys. If you want to keep Anthony Miller, you have your 3rd guy. You look at corner. You brought back Artie Burns. You have Kendall Vildor and Duke Shelley, who got some meaningful reps last year. It's not a certainty that whoever they take at 20 is going to start day 1. Again, I'm kind of playing a little devil's advocate here to the idea that we need to make sure we get an impact player right away. They've built out a situation, not a great roster. It's not a ton of depth. It's not blue chip players I just mentioned, but they've put themselves in position that if they wanted to use a 1st round pick on a quarterback who's not going to start right away, they have enough guys in their team that they could be competitive. I know a lot of people look at this team and are already jumping up their last place. This team's terrible. They're going to go 4-13. This roster is not that much worse than a team that went 8-8.
Good work on the math there, getting to 17 games, by the way. I'm going to screw that up a bunch.
I know. I've really been trying to harp on myself for that. It's going to.
I was like 4-13. What?
Yeah. By the way, my official prediction is 7-9-1.
Gotta
draft
get time.
pending. Draft pending. We'll see.
You know, one of the best. Go ahead, Kev.
Well, I was saying they've put the roster in position where they have guys that they can rely on, might be strong, but they have guys they know. They have guys they like who can start. So that like they don't need necessarily to take somebody at 20 who's going to fill into one of these need positions right away. Johnsy, going back to your mock 3.0 when you took Kwity Paye, the edge rusher, and everybody, you know, the commenters hated it. But that's another example of, you know, like the idea of sticking to the best on their board, and I think you gotta consider that possibility because they do theoretically have all their starters back pretty much that they could go to.
You know, I think one of the best hints that Ryan Pace may have provided, you know, during his 20 minutes with us over Zoom was the last question from Mark Grody about the situation that he has right now in his quarterback's room. Andy Dalton and Nick Foles would be the perfect mentors for a young quarterback. I think we can all agree on that. And there is no guarantee that either one of them or one of them will be on the roster next year. Don't you think he would love to have a young quarterback in the same room with them for a bit, for a full year? That Alex Smith situation, don't you think Matt Nagy is dreaming about having his Patrick Mahomes come into that room with their two versions of Alex Smith? Wouldn't that just be ideal to finally get the situation they always wanted, to have that young quarterback sit and learn behind a veteran, in this case, two veterans? Probably one of the best backup quarterbacks of all time in Nick Foles, and QB1, Andy Dalton for this year.
That's why I have felt like that's been the plan since they failed to get Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson was plan A. I think plan B, as much as Andy Dalton didn't make sense in the moment, it makes sense in the context of what you just said, Johns. In making that big move for a young quarterback, not forcing him out there early, letting him learn, and having that guy for the future. And it's not just like, yeah, it's easy to throw out the Patrick Mahomes situation because it works so successfully. And a lot of that's due to the fact that Mahomes is just, you know, a god. And that's unlikely. It's very unlikely that any of these guys are going to end up being as good as Patrick Mahomes. But it is relevant because Matt Nagy lived it. Matt Nagy was there. He was one working with him.
And if you read the stories about that situation, Mahomes would tell you how appreciative he is of Alex Smith in that year, and how he said himself he wasn't ready to start as a rookie. How he still felt overwhelmed in his second year at times, but look what he did because he's Patrick Mahomes. But he had that opportunity to learn, grow, see, watch Alex Smith have his own ups and downs. I mean, it's like even if Andy Dalton, even if QB1 fails, you don't have to put in your Mitchell Trubisky, right? Like it's not like the Mike Glennon situation. You could go to Nick Foles for a little bit. Like even if Andy Dalton gets hurt, you could put in Nick Foles and still have your rookie sit and learn.
Let me ask you guys this. So, I mean, that right there is like the argument of why I feel like a quarterback move is likely. I mean, do you think it's more likely that the Bears' first pick, wherever it ends up being, whether they trade up, trade back, stick at 20, whatever it is, do you feel like it's more likely that pick is a quarterback or any other position?
At 20?
No, anywhere. Like whatever they end up doing. I feel like whatever their first pick is, wherever it ends up being.
See, part of me feels like they're going to be stuck. And I'm okay with that. Like Bears fans should be okay with that. The Bears should actually be okay with that because you're probably looking at getting your next starting right tackle, Tevin Jenkins, or Greg Newsome, a starting quarterback. Like that's okay. Now, the question then becomes is how aggressive you have to get later after that to get that quarterback, to get your Kellen on. Like, but who knows? You know, maybe they have a late first round grade on and they move him up just because of the importance of the position and take him at 20.
Or maybe they watched that Mark Trestman video breaking down Davis Mills like I did and were totally sold on Davis Mills just by hearing the voice of Mr. Quarterback Whisperer. like
I can't
was.
believe
I still got to look at that. I saw that link.
I can't believe he included that in his analysis.
It's a great video.
I saw it in there. I had not seen that yet. I still need to actually watch the video.
I had written, and Johns can verify this. I had Kellen Mond there as my second pick in our mock draft, and then
Then he watched a video.
Mark
Trestman
with Mark
swayed you.
Trestman.
Yeah. I remembered though why I liked Kellen Mond is that I was on the other side of Texas A&M Florida, and Florida was a heavy favorite in that game. It was an 11 a.m. Saturday game. Kind of ruined my weekend from that perspective. But I remember watching how good Kellen Mond was in that game. Was rewatching that game last week, and again, you got to look at the best games. You got to look at the worst games. LSU is probably not maybe his worst game, but you see all the talent. But going back to Hoge, your question, I would answer it this way: is I think quarterback is their first choice. And Johns, lays out the scenario that because if you're the Falcons and you're getting trade requests, why would you want the Bears pick at 20 if you can get the Broncos at 9? And that's where the future picks come into play. Why would you want the Bears pick at 20 if you get even the Patriots pick at 15? So I think there's just so many obstacles to move up. But Matt Nagy didn't go to all these quarterback pro days just to waste McCaskey family air miles, right? Like he was there for a reason. And Ryan Pace emphasized to us what is different about this time around, that he's doing this with Matt Nagy. I just can't see them going through everything they're going through and not wanting to find a way to get a quarterback in the first round. And it's just a question of if they're able to pull it off.
2 quick points on that. One, on the idea of trading, just let's not forget players can be traded too. There's been a lot of smoke about a lot of different players potentially getting traded, and that is another option. It might not just be draft capital. Just don't forget that going into Thursday. And then to what you just said at the end, that's why I feel like the three of us in the jobs that we have, we're a little bit closer to the human element of all this because we actually talk to these people. We've been around them. We've been here for Ryan Pace's 6 seasons. Now he's in his 7th season. And I just keep coming back to this. Imagine if you were him, or imagine if you were Matt Nagy, either one of them. So if you're Pace, you've had this weight of expectations on you. You did a pretty good job of rebuilding the defense. You were so close. You lived the double doink, right? You went through your big move with Mitch Trubisky. It didn't work out. And you're still sitting here. You still have your job. You're getting another chance. But you're in year 7. 7, that's a long time. And you still have not fixed your quarterback position. And it's something we know he wanted to do immediately. He was stuck with Cutler. There was the smoke out there about Mariota. This was something he looked into early when he was still stuck with Cutler's contract. Then he finally gets out of that and is able to make the Mitch Trubisky move, and it doesn't work. There's too much there, even just from a personal human nature standpoint, to sit there and go, yeah, Tevin Jenkins is our guy. I struggle with that. And same thing with Nagy. And I think the three of us can see how fired up Nagy gets sometimes and how personal he probably takes that quarterback position. And he was brought to Chicago to work with Mitch. Maybe that wasn't his first choice, but it was the job he took, and he obviously had a belief that it could work, and it didn't. And then he goes and gets Nick Foles, and it was bad. And now he's got Andy Dalton. Again, I just can't accept the fact that they're going to sit there in the first round and not take a quarterback with all that on the line. That's why, and that's why it totally made sense to me the whole time that Russell Wilson stuff was out there.
They're going to go down swinging, right?
They got to get it right. They have to.
Yeah. They're going to go down swinging. And that requires another swing at quarterback, does it not? That collaboration, whatever that produces this year, that collaboration was not there in 2017 between the GM and the head coach.
It can't be Saturday and we're talking about Jamie Newman. That's my point. Yeah. That's an unacceptable situation, not just in our eyes or the fans' eyes, but I'm telling you, in their eyes.
And I come back to this too, is when we were sitting around waiting to hear what was going on with George McCaskey and Ted Phillips, Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. Do you think that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy showed a PowerPoint that said there was a giant picture of Andy Dalton next to a giant picture of Ryan Fitzpatrick and said, we're going to get one of these guys?
Why they got to be giant picture?
Right.
It's a big fat heads on the wall.
Take it.
They
It's a
use
projector
PowerPoint nowadays?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe. Next slide. You use your dissolve transition. Next slide.
Bill Lazor had a leftover fat head of Andy Dalton.
Next
That's from
slide
his son's bedroom.
is Juan Castillo with like a little word bubble saying, "This is my guy," and it's a picture of Tevin Jenkins.
Yeah.
Next slide, and it's Jamie Newman. Like that doesn't. I mean, again, I understand that the Bears are not a very conventionally run franchise, so maybe they were sold on something like that. But I just find it hard to believe that that they were able to sell their bosses on a quarterback plan that leads with Andy Dalton and a day 3 draft pick. Like, they've had months to try to figure out how they can make this work. I'm with. I don't know if they can get it done, but they have to figure out a way to get a quarterback before Saturday.
Yeah. All right. Let's hit on a couple other topics before we get out of here. This idea of the whole offseason program, it's interesting to me. You have the Bears come out in a statement released by the NFL Players Association on April 15th, saying that a majority of the players will not participate in in-person voluntary workouts. Then Ryan Pace today gets asked about it, and he says he thinks attendance is going to be great, maybe even close to normal. When Potsy followed up and asked him, you think it'll be 90 to 100% like normal? He said, that's what we hope. So then we talked to Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney. Now, Robinson, to me, is not really qualified to speak on this because his situation is completely different. So asking him if he's going to show up to voluntary stuff when he's under the franchise tag, that doesn't have any, to me, that has nothing to do with COVID or this deal with the Players Association. But it was interesting that Mooney said that a decision has not been made yet. Because that actually goes in conflict with both the fact that they released a statement basically saying that they have come together to not show up, and then also in conflict with Pace thinking everyone's going to be there. I just thought that was a very interesting answer from Mooney. We still haven't decided.
And he's in Chicago, too.
Yeah, he says he's in Chicago.
Town. He's working out. A couple things on this. It's voluntary. And if you want him there, maybe make it mandatory. And I know there's workout bonuses included. I don't think many Bears players have them, actually, right? Kev, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not like some of these other teams.
Well, what's interesting is that I think there are 10 players that have them, and I'm not going to, go get your money, but I'm not sure how desperate someone with Khalil Mack's salary is to get that workout bonus, for example.
Yeah. Also, at the same time, Robinson and Mooney were directly asked if they're vaccinated, and neither are yet. So obviously there's time between May 17th. It's only, the 27th right now, so it could happen. They haven't decided. I think Mooney said he was looking forward to, but hasn't gotten it yet, and Robinson was undecided. But that's part of this too, right? The only reason we're talking about this is because we're still on the pandemic, in the pandemic, and here they are. The Bears' 2 starting wide receivers aren't vaccinated yet. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. It is voluntary. The Bears aren't the only team going through this. I think there's 22 teams now or something like that. I know the number was over 20 or at 20. So they're not this isn't some strange situation just affecting the Chicago Bears by any means.
Yeah, I kind of always viewed the NFLPA statements a little bit as conjecture, more so than practice. I understand where they're coming from.
It seems like a negotiation.
Always, that's a great point, Kevin.
Yeah,
always.
they just they know that they have this card and they can use it and they have reason to use it. But let's be real here. I understand. I'm obviously all about the health and safety, but it's not like these guys are sitting at home and not going outside their houses. We've seen how safe some of these facilities can be. And so I'm perfectly fine with the NFLPA drawing that line in the sand, because it is voluntary. If the NFL teams wanted these guys to be there, they could talk to their owners about making that mandatory,
Yeah, but there's no way that
yeah.
PA would ever accept that.
Right. And look, if you're on Instagram, you know which players have been at Hallis Hall. Like a few starting big name players have been at Hallis Hall and they've been working out. So like you can see who some of the guys are that have been there. You can see who some of the guys are who aren't going to be there. You know, I guess you'd like to see as many guys that be able to work with Andy Dalton, able to work with Sean Desai, some of the new pieces, but I don't know. Like the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl last year with a brand new. I know it's Brady, so you kind of put that aside, but I think this might ultimately be much ado about nothing. That's why I go back to the conjecture. It just becomes a players versus owners thing, and it's unfortunate for some of these guys who might want to work out or actively don't want to work out, getting kind of stuck in the middle of it. But I look at this Bears team and it's just, I don't know if them being here and doing some of the stuff together, like how much better is that going to set them up for compared to all the other teams who are kind of in the same situation?
I mean, I think teams are different, though. I mean, I know it's easy to say all the teams are dealing with the same thing, but actually this year they're not dealing with the same thing. Like last year, the facilities were all closed. They're not closed right now. They're open, and you heard it from Pace today. You just said it. There's guys on Instagram. They're at Hallis Hall. Pace has said there's guys there. So they're obviously not unified in this already. They're there.
Well, the PA is never unified in anything, right?
Well, and that's my
one
point.
thing I've learned over the years.
And there's just too much at stake for too many players. You always, anytime we talk about the NFLPA, you have to always remember that the majority of the members in the Players Association are players who have nothing guaranteed, who are always playing for their jobs. And if you're a rookie, and it might be easy if you're the first round pick to be like, okay, I'm going to go with the players here. And, my teammates say don't show up, I'm not going to do it. But if you're a undrafted free agent, that could be part of the negotiations. Hey, we're only signing you if you're showing up next week. And they're getting put in a tough spot. There's just too much. If you're even on the roster now and your job is not guaranteed in September, that you are going to be fighting for your job in training camp, you need to be in the building. There's too much at stake. And I do think it hurt the Bears last year. Now, there were some cases, there were some outliers. Darnell Mooney, obviously, it didn't really impact him. But I don't think it helped Danny Trevathan. I don't think it helped Robert Quinn. I don't think it helped Anthony Miller in his development. It obviously hurt Nick Foles. He was supposed to be brought here because he knew the offense. They couldn't get lined up right when Nick Foles was out there. They had penalties. They had to burn timeouts. There was all kinds of problems. I think it definitely hurt the Bears more than some of the other teams. It'd be nice to have Tom Brady. You could probably get through it. Plus, Tom Brady was out there running maskless training camps on his own in Florida.
Yeah.
As soon as he got down there.
Generally speaking, I just think it's unfair for one teammate to expect another teammate to forfeit hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially in workout bonuses, right? Like, what type of teammate are you? Like, if you're demanding your teammate to do that, like that's not being a good teammate. It's quite unfair, and that's the situations a lot of these teams are in. I think the Packers again have the most workout bonus money tied into some of these contracts, but you can't. It's not fair, It's just. I think this is much ado about nothing. Like you said, May 17th. I bet you Ryan Pace is proven right.
We're
going to have close to 90 guys there.
Got some breaking news.
What do you got?
According to Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, the Bears have exercised a fifth-year option for Roquan Smith.
No,
I thought you were going to say they traded up.
It's it's guaranteed.
By the way, that's that question hasn't even been asked this offseason. That's funny that just came out.
I actually thought I had it on my list today for Ryan Pace. I thought about asking about it. I was like, I'll just ask him this weekend.
He probably would have told us too.
Yeah.
If a question have actually have been asked, that was a bad sentence. I bet you he would have answered it. That's funny.
Clean it up there, Hoge. Clean it up.
Compared to last year when we, how many times did we ask about Trubisky's fifth-year option?
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and he set himself up, too, because the year before, he told us in January that they were going to exercise Leonard Floyd's fifth-year option.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Any final thoughts?
No. Draft a quarterback. Like, if you're I love the movie Draft Day. People hate the movie Draft Day. I love the movie Draft Day.
Is that Cap's favorite movie?
Yeah, it's one of Cap's favorite movies. I just love the drama of it, and I love the NFL draft. I know it's silly, but I do know there's a lot of overthinking on picks, and scouts do dig into like guys, backgrounds and whatnot. So there's some truth to it, actually. Like, what's the name? What do you say? Ryan Pace is going to play. What's the GM's name there in that movie? Now I forget. Kevin Costner, whatever. What are you writing on that card? Sonny Weaver. What are you writing on that card?
Vontae Mack, no matter what.
Quarterback, no matter what, right?
Yeah, it's probably quarterback, no matter what. I mean, I do have a limit. Like, I'm not taking Davis Mills in the first round.
Wait till you watch Mark Trestman's breakdown. See what you say then.
Yeah, I'm going to set that up. The very next thing to do on my list. Got like 7 things to write. Plenty more to do. I got a baseball practice tonight.
Me too.
Good solid, single A Vernon Hills baseball practice. But before I do all that, I have to get Mark Trestman's thoughts on Davis Mills.
You're going to love it.
I know Kevin Fishbain has a post-it note in front of him that just says Greg Newsome no matter what.
Like, you guys saw my mock last week. Trade up for Rashawn Slater. Trade up again for Greg Newsome. You got your offensive tackle in your corner for 10 years. You're all good. Who needs 2022 draft picks?
That was pretty funny mock draft.
I liked it. My favorite part about it was how many people did not get the bit.
Oh, yeah. People were mad.
No, very mad.
How many attempts did that actually take you to get?
It took a really long time.
Yeah, so you just spent half your day on the simulator.
It was lunchtime, and I was trying to figure out different ways because you had to wait till Slater to slip down far enough to then trade up for him, and then you had to get the trade accepted, and then you press continue, and then suddenly Greg Newsome's off the board. You have to start over. Yeah, it was challenging.
Quick story with so I use that Pro Football Focus simulator to execute these trades in my last mock draft, and I went through it. And I had it all done, and for some reason, like an idiot, I decided not to write down what I did with all those different trades. I mean, I did like 4 different trades, and anyway, somehow the window got closed. My browser, like in the middle of me writing up the mock draft, and I was like, "Oh no, I have no idea." Like, it was tough for me to remember the teams that I traded with, let alone the exact picks that I used. And then I went back and I did it, and it was like denying the same exact trades that it had already granted me before, which made no sense, but it did. So it took forever to
you almost got stuck with Davis Mills.
No. What if I drafted Kellen Mond, Davis Mills, and Felipe Franks?
People more swings, better chance to get it right.
Exactly. Take your shots.
That would be hilarious if the Bears just only drafted quarterbacks. Do you think if they only drafted quarterbacks, and I'm talking about from 6 on, like none of the top 5 guys, just like Kellen Mond, Davis Mills, Jamie Newman, Ian Book, Sam Ellinger, Felipe Franks, would
Peyton
any of them
Ramsey.
work out? Would they get a starter out of that?
Well, did you cover that kicking competition or no?
I did, and it would be way more fun if it was a quarterback competition.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
I mean, I would sign up for that. Give me a QB camp with all those guys.
Based on the Athletics series on the history of Bears quarterbacks, I would say that none of those guys would make it.
What about if Peyton Ramsey was in there?
He'd have the best shot.
Okay. All right, let's wrap things up. It has been a crazy few weeks as we get ready for this draft. It feels like it has taken forever, but we are finally here when we talk to you next. Unless the Bears don't make a pick in the first round, I guess. I mean, if they trade out of the first, we'll still do a podcast Thursday night about that. That would be the only situation in which we do not have a new Bears player to talk about when we come to you next time, which will be Thursday night. I have a feeling we'll open up the voicemail line for you, depending on what happens. So look for that. That should be open, and we'll try to get your voicemails on the podcast pretty quickly, depending on what they do. I think the 3 of us anticipate some fireworks, though. Kind of just seems like it has to happen. Or maybe it'll be really boring and we'll all be wrong.
Could be a real letdown then if it's number 20, if it's an offensive tackle. But there's a lot of people that be very excited about that.
I don't think it would be a bad thing.
No, it wouldn't be a bad thing for the
Yeah.
team. It's just from an excitement standpoint, it'd be a letdown.
Yeah. All right. Follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns, at K Fishbain. Check out our shirts on obviousshirts.com, our YouTube channel. You could be watching this podcast right now. Johnsy's wearing one of his shirts, which is rare. Usually he goes shirtless, but today he has a shirt on. It is a Hoge and Jahns shirt, and you can see that on our YouTube.
Like
channel.
Sean McVay making picks from the pool. No.
You're probably putting it in your own pool in Edison Park and setting
nice
up your
out.
own Malibu war room.
It's nice out. I'm going to order some wings.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Where from?
Do it right. We'll see. Try somewhere new. I haven't decided yet.
All right. Enjoy your last couple days and hours leading up to the draft. We will talk to you Thursday night.
See ya.
Y'all stay corona free, all right? And God bless.